Welcome everyone to day 3 of Suburban Action Week. We've got our Lake County update right now, and I'm Maggie Sherwinski, an advocacy manager from the Active Transportation Alliance, and we also have Heather Shady here from Active Trans, who's our senior planner, and the two of us will be helping with Q&A and any technical issues that might come up. If you do have any questions during the presentation, use the chat box at the bottom and we'll get to those after the presentation portion. And now I'd like to introduce our two speakers today. We've got Kevin Carrier from the Lake County Division of Transportation. He's their Director of Planning and Programming. And Randy Seebach, the Director of Planning and Land Preservation from the Lake County Forest Preserves. So I will hand it over to Kevin to get started.
Yeah, great. And thank you, Maggie. And thanks everyone for having us today and coming to check out and learn a little bit more about regional trails in Lake County. So as Maggie mentioned, my name is Kevin Carrier, the Director of Planning and Programming for Lake County DOT. And then with me today is Randy Seebach, who is, I guess, kind of my counterpart, Director of Planning and Land Preservation for the Forest Preserve. And Randy has been involved and continues to be involved in the Forest Preserve's, expansive trail network in Lake County. So with that, I guess kind of give you a brief overview of what we're going to get into today. So we'd like to introduce our agencies and give you a little bit of background and some stats on our existing systems, and then get into some current and future projects that we're both working on. One thing we thought was maybe unique or interesting as well is that we have a history of kind of working together and partnering on some projects, whether it's projects that we're leading or the Forest Preserve's leading, or using some of their properties and trying to get some common ground to get some bike paths and non-motorized facilities done. So we kind of wanted to highlight a couple projects that we've worked on recently as well to kind of give some insights there, and ultimately make everyone a little bit more aware of what we're doing here, and maybe come out and check out our trails once 2 feet of snow melts off the ground and the weather turns a little bit. So with that, I'll turn it over to Randy here for a couple slides to kind of tell you a little bit more about the district.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Kevin. Like Kevin said, it's exciting to have this opportunity to talk to you a little bit about Lake County. So on your screen there is the Forest Preserve District's mission. And as the Director of Planning and Land Preservation, I focus much of my time on the recreation portion of our mission. And the majority of that time is on trail planning and implementation of those trails throughout Lake County. Currently, the district owns and manages over 205 miles of trails and their associated improvements, including 23 tunnels and underpasses, and 173 bike and pedestrian bridges. These trails are recreation-based and are multi-use. They're available for hiking, biking, and cross-country skiing. And then some of those trails are also open for horseback riding and snowmobiling.
So here's the Lake County DOT mission. And the one thing I kind of wanted to point out here was, in the second line there, you see transportation system. And that was kind of a choice by us. It could have been maybe, say, road network or highway system or something like that. But that kind of lends itself to the fact that we really do look at our right-of-way and try our best to design our right-of-way for all users and all modes. So obviously, we're wanting to move traffic and goods and stuff through the county, but realizing that there's definitely a need and a desire there for things like bike paths and sidewalks and such. So looking at similar stats to what Randy had there from the Forest Preserve, we have 300 centerline miles and about 900 lane miles of highway. But here's some stats about kind of our bike paths and that kind of facility. So you see over 60 miles of bike facilities, over 100 miles of bike-friendly shoulders, 15 bike and pedestrian bridges, 15 tunnels, underpasses, and even a U.S. bike route there too, which is kind of follows our Robert McClory Trail.
So for over 50 years, our two agencies have been leaders with the planning and implementation of regional trails in Lake County. And together with partners, we have completed or are working on 15 separate regional trails. And this is kind of a fun map. And so as Kevin and I quickly run through a few of these trails, take note that the solid colored lines are completed sections of trails, and the black dashed lines are proposed sections not yet completed. So the first one that I want to just mention a little bit about is the Des Plaines River Trail, which is that orange trail that goes north to south there. Many of you may have heard about that trail. It's a 31.4 miles stretching the entire length of the county, and it connects 13 forest preserves, and it's 100% complete. It also continues south into Cook County, where I know that they're working on upgrading and sections and adding new sections as well. So again, that section's the orange text section there, north to south. Then in the late 1980s, we began work on an effort to connect central, western, and northern Lake County to the Des Plaines River Trail and the North Shore Path. And so that's the Millennium Trail shown in purple. And that is 31 miles. Today, there's 31 miles of the planned 41.4 miles complete. And through our partnership with Lake County DOT, with Kevin's group, they have constructed 3 underpasses for that trail system and approximately 5 miles of the trail. The last one that I want to touch on is in the northwest part of the county, up in the upper left corner. And that's a Chain of Lakes bike path, and that's a collaborative effort. To serve the northwest corner of the county. And this trail is a loop with connecting 2 municipalities, 2 forest preserves, a state park. And presently there's about 10.5 miles of the 24 miles that are complete.
A couple trails that I'd like to highlight here that are largely owned and operated by Lake County DOT, though there are some municipal areas and municipalities that some municipalities own and operate the trail or have some maintenance responsibilities through agreements with us. But the first one is on the blue line that runs north and south on the eastern part of the county. That's the Robert McClory bike path. So that one does expand or extend north into Kenosha County and south into Cook County as well. Lake County DOT owns and operates about the northern half of it, and then kind of split jurisdiction between us and municipalities in the southern half. Another one is the North Shore Bike Path, which is kind of the looks like a black or dark grayish line there, centrally located in the county. It's about 8 miles and extends from the Robert McClory Path west over to Mundelein area. There's we've been working with Randy's group and the village of Mundelein to try to make a hard connection to the Millennium Trail there. You can access between both the trails kind of on street within some of the subdivisions, but we are working on getting a hard trail connection there, which would tie those regional trails together. And then lastly is the Skokie Valley Bike Path, which runs north and south in Lake County from the North Shore Bike Path down to Lake Cook Road. And then I'll tell you about a couple initiatives here in a couple slides down the road, a little teaser here, but I got a couple projects we're working on the Skokie Valley Bike Path as well. So this is just some stats. We'll kind of breeze through this, but this is some stats that Randy's team pulled together, looking at a 1/4 mile buffer on either side of those regional trails, just to kind of show you some of the regional destinations, municipalities, schools, forest preserves, transit hubs, and things like that are along those regional trails. So they've done a really good job, obviously, planning those out with those kind of key destinations in mind for those 15 trails there. So that's a good stat to look at there. So this is Lake County DOT's this is our long range 2040 non-motorized plan. So we have a long range plan. We have a roadway component, a non-motorized component, which you see here, and then a transit component of our long range plan. This was completed and adopted in 2014. And this map in particular, the non-motorized, was put together with a lot of help from Randy's team at the Forest Preserve and then our municipal and township partners. It was really the first time in Lake County we kind of put together a comprehensive plan for our existing and our future trails in the Lake County region. So It's color coded. You can see in red there is Lake County DOT, green is the forest preserve, blue is other jurisdiction, which would be maybe IDOT on a state route or a local township or municipality. And then just kind of different line types there for existing versus planned trails. And there's a link at the bottom left corner to our website if you would like a little bit more information or go and kind of explore it on your own. But that's a good kind of our long range 30,000 foot view kind of planning document. Helps guide our investments in the county.
So just a couple of Forest Preserve current projects that we're working on right now. One is a little section of the Millennium Trail, which includes the Route 45 underpass and a trail connecting Ethels Woods and Raven Glen Forest Preserves, which is in the northern part of the county. And we just broke ground on that in November. And it takes about a year for those underpasses to be constructed because they're constructed in place, poured in place. So if you see the photo there, that's the tunnel that we put in recently under Grand Avenue. And you can see it's pretty involved because they are poured in place, they're formed and everything on site. And so that's underway. Hopefully this fall we'll have that complete. And then we're also working on a trail extension from Pine Dunes up to, or excuse me, from Ethels Woods north to 173, and then north of 173 to Hunt Club Road, where it'll connect into the other, to the Pine Dunes Forest Preserve Trail. And that's 4.1 miles total. And we're starting doing some preliminary phase 1 engineering. We've started on that. And we're hoping to receive federal funding for that project as well through the CMAQ or the TAP program. And then we also have a number of little multiple smaller trail connections that we typically work with municipalities to connect into the regional trail system. And typically that requires an agreement with municipalities for cost sharing. And then really looking for the future. So we'd like to complete those 3 trails, the Millennium Trail, the Fort Hill Trail, and the Chain of Lakes Bike Path. And the Millennium Trail, we have 10.4 miles left, Fort Hill 2.7 left. And then finally, Chain of Lakes, we have 13.3 miles. Currently, we do not have any funding available, and we're going to continue to look for opportunities to fund those trails. And then also, if you notice the map on the bottom left part of the county, so they're sort of underserved. They're really not connected into that regional network. And so we hope to begin initial planning sometime this year on the southwest part of the county as well.
So a couple projects here that are underway or near completion for Lake County DOT. So the first one here, the bike path wayfinding signage study, is something that it's a study we just wrapped up. So we continue to hear from users and our residents that while we have a lot of good trails and paths in the county, that it'd be nice to have some consistent signage along those paths to kind of help get them to their destinations. So we initiated this study to kind of look at that and come up with a like a wayfinding methodology and then some sign templates and stuff that we can start implementing on our county trails. So the plan is complete now, and we're going to look to start implementing that. You should start seeing those roll out on the Lake County DOT trails over the next year here, and they'll have kind of on the upper right-hand corner, this Explore Lake County branding will be on all those signs. So we're excited about that. It's one thing that's kind of going to get implemented here. Second on the list, and it doesn't have a picture or an image there, but it's a Patriot Path is what we're calling it. It's a 5.5 mile bike path along State Route 137, which connects at the west end to the Des Plaines River Trail, all the way over to the Robert McClory on the east end. And then it'll tie in a bunch of regional destinations and employment centers, bus stops, and a metro station over at the east end too. So that's a very exciting project. We're in phase 1 engineering on, which is kind of our planning engineering stage, but we should be entering into phase 2, which is where we're actually going to start putting engineering plans and documents together later this year. And the goal is we're after some federal funding on that. So hopefully we get some funding for that project, and then we can move it into construction here in the next couple of years. The bottom right of your screen is a rendering of the Skokie Valley Bike Path Bridge. So this is a project that we're partnering up with Cook County DOT on. Lake County DOT led phase 1, Cook County DOT is underway into phase 2 design, and the goal of this project is to bridge Lake Cook Road, so to provide a connection for our Skokie Valley Bike Path into Cook County. And then for Cook County and some of the municipalities down there, like I think Northbrook, they're working on plans to extend the bike path and fill in some gaps and stuff like that to get it further into Cook County, with ultimate plans to kind of get it to the city of Chicago. So I alluded to some Skokie Valley bike path projects in one of my earlier slides. So that's one of them. And another one that Lake County DOT is just starting preliminary engineering, or this phase 1 engineering on, is a bike path along Lake Cook Road that would look to tie into the Skokie Valley Trail and this bridge here, and run east and connect to an existing bike path at the Chicago Botanic Garden, which then connects to the Robert McClory bike path. So we're at the early stages of that right now, but it's an exciting project that we just got into our program that we'll get working on here this year. And then lastly, I don't have any images for it, but just to kind of note out that we do look at this non-motorized infrastructure in all of our projects. So here's a couple projects: the Quentin Road project and the 14th Street project that we have bike path and sidewalk on that are wrapping up this year. But we do evaluate those needs on all those projects as well. Looking at the horizon a little bit, so that was our projects that are underway. Here's our 6-year program that we put together. This is the non-motorized component of it. We also have a road component as well. But we have planned $40 million of investments in non-motorized infrastructure over the next 6 years. That's anything from actual ADA ramps or push buttons, maybe on like a resurfacing job, to engineering studies, and ultimately to building kind of standalone bike paths like the Patriot Path that I mentioned earlier. That's about 6% of our total program, which we're very proud of. We've heard kind of nationwide from advocacy groups that 2 to 3% is a good target for road agencies, and we've been in the 5 to 6% range over the last few years.
So we've heard a lot in recent years from the county board about working together and sharing resources. This is a fun little project where both agencies benefited from. And so Lake County DOT had a project called Cedar Lake Road Improvement Project. And so Cedar Lake Road is the north-south road there that goes from the top to the bottom. And the Forest Preserve owns the property there to the left, okay, north of the one road and west of Cedar Lake Road. So that's called our Nippersink Forest Preserve. And so this is really a true collaboration. And so essentially, Lake County DOT approached the Forest Preserve, and they needed additional right-of-way for their improvements, permanent right-of-way. They also needed temporary easements for construction, and they needed land to provide a detention water quality basin to offset their improvements. And so the district, we also needed some things. And so we were looking to connect our trail, which you see in the upper left corner, to that intersection of 120 and Cedar Lake Road. So we wanted to connect down there, and also to the residents to the east of Cedar Lake Road. And we also had we purchased recently a RV site, sales and service yard there. And so that needed to be demolished and restored. So through an agreement, Lake County DOT was able to use the credits from the removal of the RV site impervious surfaces in lieu of having to build and construct a detention basin. So essentially, Lake County received through the agreement the land they needed for the road improvements, savings from not having to build the basin, and then they also were able to use the project for construction staging, or our property for construction staging. And the district received that trail connection, removal of that RV site, and the restoration of that entire area. And then we also received 290 trees that were planted on our property there that were mitigation for the tree removals from the road project. So the total cost benefit was approximately $1.2 million per agency, each agency received. So that was really a fun project. And this slide shows the actual trail being built. Kevin's group, their road widening improvements all complete there. And you see that RV storage yard is all gone, and you can start to see some of the dots there for the trees that were planted. So again, this was a fun project, and both agencies benefited greatly from working together.
This is one more project that we have here to kind of show some collaboration, and it was led by Lake County DOT on Lake County Forest Preserve District property. So kind of unique project that you don't really see a county highway involved at all here. But the goal of this project from the DOT standpoint was to create a wetland bank. We routinely need to bank wetland credits for little isolated pockets of wetlands that we may impact as part of a road project, and having them all together in one large bank is a nice ecological way to do that and environmentally friendly. So we were looking to create a bank, and we ended up working with the Forest Preserve District here who owned this property. It was a 65-acre former farm field that was unimproved. So this project improved the whole property there, created 25 acres of wetland, and the rest were upland prairies. So this picture here, we don't have a before picture to show you, but this is kind of right after construction. So today, and even when it's done, going through its maintenance and monitoring period and getting fully established, it's going to look even better than it does in this picture. But this picture kind of shows it right after construction, but you can see kind of the formation of some of the wetlands in the area there. And it's kind of a green landscape and with the plantings and stuff. And it was just a kind of old farm field before, like I mentioned. The project also created just under 1 mile of trails that off the screen here, kind of to the bottom, connects to a Village of Long Grove soccer field complex. To the left here connects to some subdivisions that are in the Village of Long Grove. And then as you see up towards the top of the screen where it disappears, it goes over and connects into an existing loop trail that the Forest Preserve has on their Buffalo Creek Forest Preserve property. So Randy, I don't know, I didn't have stats on that. I don't know if you know offhand how long that trail or that loop trail is in the Buffalo Creek complex.
I think there's over 5 miles of trails there, Kevin.
Yeah, so we were able to kind of work together again, like Randy said. They got a developed property out of it. We got the wetland credits. The village got some connections from their residents and the soccer fields to the south over to that loop trail connection there. So just another project of kind of our agencies working together just for the greater good.
So the Forest Preserve District launched the new interactive trail map in 2017, and it's accessible through the district's website via the mobile device as well as a desktop. And this is a snapshot of what that interactive trail map looks like if you go on our website. It's really quite neat, actually. You can locate trails and preserves. You can find activities. You can find your location and navigate easily through, using GPS, and all from your phone, tablet, or desktop. And so really it provides information on trails. So you would click on a trail and you could find where the nearest parking lot is, where the links to trails are, trail surface types, trail closures, and underpass status. And so this is really taking a little bit further into it, and you can actually see a window pop up there. So that one is the Fort Hill Trail. And so you can see the information, how the interactive trail map works. It's very, very user-friendly, and you can use it again in the field when you're out biking or hiking. And so it's available to our staff in real time to make on-the-spot changes and updates. So for instance, if there's a downed tree over the trail or a portion of the trail is flooded, the staff can immediately go on there using their phone and update the map to notify the public or the users that section of trail is closed temporarily. So I'd encourage everybody, if you haven't done it already, to go, play around with that using our website, which is at the top of the screen there.
And then just some information here. I'll kind of walk through this pretty quickly, but there's information on our website, Lake County DOT website. You can click on the little bikeways image that we have kind of highlighted there, the bikeways info. That'll bring you to our webpage that has quite a bit of information on bikeways, bike paths, and our efforts in Lake County. And then we also have a Bike Lake County app, which I'd encourage you, like Randy said, it's got some good information in terms of just the different trails in Lake County, and you can kind of click on and get some different information as well too. So I encourage you to go to the Bikeways website, and then on the right-hand side, there's a button you can click to kind of download the app or go check out the app. So with that, I guess kind of concludes the presentation. We'd like to thank everyone for their time, and I guess open it up to a little bit more discussion or questions.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin and Randy. It was a great presentation and lots of great visuals, and also it's great to see how you two collaborate, how both departments, agencies work together. You've made some beautiful trails. So let's see, let's pull up the questions from the chat, and anyone who's on right now, feel free to add anything else. Heather and I will read through these. So first question is from Eberhard. What is the Forest District's approach to transportation cycling? What about transportation cycling after dusk?
So, we've received a lot of questions in the last few years about why we're not open at night. And really, our focus was different than what Kevin and DOT's focus is. Our focus is recreation based. And so many of our trails are for recreation purposes. So they're designed they're not designed for night use, first of all, but they're also not designed for commuting and moving fast, because they do have a lot of curves, and they meander through areas, they go through wetland areas. And so they're really not designed for commuter use or for nighttime use. And so, again, we've received those questions, and that's really been our answer to that question. And I know Kevin, I think they're more commuter based. I think their trails, and so they are open at night. I think a lot of those roads are already lit, whereas we don't have lighting on our trails, and so there's just a lot of concern about opening those up for nighttime use.
Okay, the next question is, are you coordinating tie-in facilities with neighboring counties, especially McHenry?
So Kevin, I think that's the Grand Illinois Trail. So maybe if you could go back to slide 7, Kevin. That's the overall, the map with the colors. So yes, we are. And so we, if you look at the Grand Illinois Trail, so that's the connection over there with the black dashed line there, and that would connect into the Millennium Trail. And we've been working actually with Kevin and his staff on how to make that connection. We haven't got a definitive route yet, but we know where we need to go, and we know it's an important connection. Kevin, I don't know if you want to add anything more on that, because I think Gilmer Road is part of that solution there as well.
Yeah, there's a couple of county highways in the vicinity, and Darrell Road is another one too. And we have active roadway projects on Darrell Road. So we've been in conversations even recently with the IDNR to kind of find out what their plans are for that Grand Illinois Trail, and to how they can connect up to our planned bike paths on Darrell Road. And then, as Randy alluded to, then there's in our long range plan, it's probably hard to see, but if you go on our website or look at the long range plan, you'll see that there's some sketched lines there to show future trail connections getting over to the Millennium Trail. So so there is a plan out there. Our first step was our Darrell Road project and getting some bike path infrastructure along that road and getting a tie-in from the Grand Illinois Trail. And then the next phase would be working probably with Randy's group and municipalities and such to try to get that connection. Then what's the best way to get that over to the Millennium Trail? I also know that we do have some lines on here on our bike path plan that kind of go off the page into McHenry County. I know they're in the process of kind of updating their long range plan too, the McHenry County DOT. So we have definitely been keeping an eye on that and coordinating with their staff a little bit to let them know if they see opportunities as part of their plan, or they're getting questions or inquiries from residents about trying to make some connections over there, that we definitely want to be part of those discussions and try to find ways to accommodate those too. So.
And then another question from Terry. He asks, what are plans for Illinois or state right-of-way Route 53?
Boy, Kevin, I maybe you can update them where that's at.
Yeah, and we've been, that's all owned, my understanding is by the state. I don't think it's even the tollway. I think a lot of that's the state of Illinois. So I know that I've been hearing some things here and there that they've been looking at potential future uses for that, if they're going to keep that property or not, or is there, some potential recreational uses for it or whatnot. And I admittedly don't know, and I'd hate to kind of speak for the state on that. You know what I mean? That's their property, and they'd have to go through a process to kind of repurpose or to give that back up, I guess. So yeah,
I've heard
unfortunately, I don't have a
those
good
same
answer, but
I've heard those same discussions, Kevin, but I don't think we've got any definitive plans approved for that yet, is what I've heard.
no, I think the state and IDNR and other state agencies have been kind of trying to work together on that, but nothing that I am aware of at this time. So.
And Terry, actually tomorrow we'll have a session with the Midwest Sustainability Group, and they probably have the latest down low on what's happening with Route 53. And I've pretty much heard the same thing that Kevin and Randy have said, but we'll get maybe a little more updates tomorrow on it.
Okay, the next question is from Victoria. When is the Quentin Road bike path slated to be to start and finish?
Yeah, it's a great question, and we just finished. So the Quentin Road project that was under construction is from US Route 12 north to 22, and that project is completed. And the bike path is open, I believe. So this spring, or when the snow melts and stuff like that, that should be accessible along with the sidewalks. We have a project, the DOT, to fill in a gap at the intersection of 22 and Quentin, just with how our project kind of fell in line with the state has a project on State Route 22, and we were trying to, time those as best we could, but there is a little gap at that intersection. So we're gonna lead a project here this year to kind of tie in that bike path gap to some facilities on the north side of 22. And then down the road, we're starting on a phase 1 study that's going to look at some road and bike path improvements of Quentin Road and Old McHenry Road north of 22. So that's kind of down the road a little bit. We're just getting a consultant on board and studying that. But the ultimate goal would then be to get bike path north of 22 up Quentin Road, and then along Old McHenry Road, and kind of finding a destination for it there. But there's some parks and different amenities up there at the north too that'd be good to tie in. So hopefully that answers the question. Yep.
And then James has a question. James says, I'm interested in what signage or notification methods are available to show flooding or when trails are open or closed.
So I can answer that on Forest Preserve property. So typically the flooding occurs on those underpasses that we have, and most of it's along the Des Plaines River, which is essentially in the floodplain is much of the route. And so what we try to do is we have flip signs that we put at each point where you can access the trail. So the nearest road connection, or might be a parking lot, and they're always in place. And so our ranger staff will go and flip those and say trail closed ahead. So that's pretty well marked, is what I'm aware of. And again, it's a matter of just making sure our maintenance staff or our ranger staff monitors that and flips those ahead of time, so that you're not heading down a trail a fair distance and all of a sudden realize that it stops because it's flooded.
Yeah, and I know that came up as part of the bike path wayfinding signage study on the DOT end that we had talked about. And one of the benefits of that study is that we're going to look to implement mile markers where we don't have them on our DOT paths now. So we don't get a lot of the flooding like on the Des Plaines River Trail that Randy was mentioning. Ours are usually like along the side of the roads and stuff like that. But I think there have been occasions where you might see, if you have a storm come through, like a tree down or something like that. So I believe, I'd have to check on you, I believe that's available on our Bike Lake County app. But one thing that we want as part of our Bike Path Wayfinding signage study is all those signs will have phone numbers for who maintains the trails, where people can kind of report those type of things. You can call into the maintenance crew, whether it's our path or say a municipal path, and say, hey, I'm at mile marker 4.5 and there's a tree down blocking the path or something like that. And then someone can come out there and get the path back opened up again. So.
And also the Forest Preserve, we talked about that interactive trail map, and that does have information on closures. And so those are updated almost immediately when they find the issue or they hear about it. And so what I would recommend is that before you head out to the trail, check our interactive trail map. That'll provide that information for you.
Great. Okay, the next question is from James. There's a serious lack of connection between the McClory Trail and the Des Plaines River. When is the Lions Wood connection scheduled for completion?
So Kevin, if you want to back up to that slide 7, I can answer that. So we actually maybe about 4 years ago, we came up with the idea of connecting the Waukegan area west to the Des Plaines River Trail, which also goes through the McClory Path. And so the section that's in green there in the upper right corner there, that's all done. And that was done about 2 years ago. And then the dash section there is obviously not completed yet. And so we're working on that. We know that that's important. And I think it's about 2 miles that has to be complete through there. And in fact, Kevin's group, Lake County DOT, just completed the section up on Wadsworth Road there. So this map is not quite current. Kevin, their group moves pretty quickly on this stuff. And so I didn't even get a chance to update the map yet. But so if you look, there's a canoe up there. So they go from the canoe launch or downtown Wadsworth, and they've completed that section there. And so it's bike lanes, which is really, really important. And so there's a gap in between there. It's on our list. We're hoping within the next 4 or 5 years that'll be done. And then there's other connections that Kevin might allude to down there, and that's the North Shore Path that provides a connection between the DPR trail and the Robert McClory Path. And that's all 100% complete, I believe, right, Kevin?
Yes, that's correct. Yep. And then the dash line right above it is the Patriot Path that I was talking about earlier in the presentation, that runs along 176 to try to get additional east-west connectivity between the DPR and ultimately the Robert McClory Path on the east side too.
Great. And then there's just a comment from Al from the Evanston Bicycle Club, who very much appreciates both of your expertise. And I guess just another question that I think is just an interesting topic is what have you, we were talking a little bit before this started, but what have you seen in Lake County as far as walking and biking goes in the last year since the pandemic started? Do you have any data you can share or any anecdotal experiences?
Well, absolutely. So the Forest Preserve, so we do parking lot counts. We count the vehicles entering our parking lots. And what we noticed since the COVID thing started last March is that our increase in usage has been up 40 to 50% continuously, even up into the fall and early winter. Absolutely amazing how much use, and it just makes us feel that much better that we're providing an opportunity for people to get out and enjoy and recreate and really stay healthy. And so we've seen that increase, and it's continuing. And hopefully it'll continue even when we're out of this thing, we're hoping.
Yeah, we've had some counts. We have counters on a couple of our trails. it was just a couple snapshots in time compared to last year, but we saw some increases over close to 150%, I want to say, for both ped and bike. And then looking at some of the Strava data too, county-wide, it looks like it was up kind of similar, like around 100%, so almost doubling. So like Randy said, it's great that we have this infrastructure in place and people are able to get out and kind of use it. And, some of it's people working from home and all that. And maybe when they get back in the office, they won't have that opportunity to get out there, but hopefully it's some people that are new to finding the trails and stuff like that and can kind of keep, using it, maybe finding trails that they didn't know existed before and something they want to continue taking advantage of.
So it looks like we have another question from James. Would it be an option to widen the shoulders on Russell Road or York House to connect to the McClory Path and Des Plaines River Trail?
Yeah, we look at, I'd have to know kind of the areas that he's referring to. So York House Road, west of Delaney, it's a municipal road. So that would be something, I guess, would have to be looked at by the city of Waukegan. But in general, on our county highways, we look to do, when we resurface a road, we do a minimum of like a 4-foot bike-friendly shoulder everywhere we can. So when we could do a new resurfacing project, unless there's some sort of issue out there, we have existing curb and gutter or some sort of like environmental, wetland or something like that. But in general, we try to put 4-foot bike-friendly shoulders on all of our projects. And I'd have to go back and look at Russell Road. I know we have a couple intersection improvements there, and I know we've partnered with the Forest Preserve to get some paths done on Russell Road, but I'd have to kind of look at the specifics on that, but something that you can consider.
Yeah, Kevin, can I just jump in there quick?
Yeah,
So
sure.
I know that it's in the plans for Lake County DOT to bring it along Russell Road over to the McClory Path and north. And so the reason I know that is because there was an agreement that was done a few years back before Kevin was in his position, and they actually they've actually acquired some land, or we've given them the option to acquire land to build that path at Van Patten Woods there, which is right where you see that canoe launch up there. So I do know it's in the plans, Kevin. I don't know how far out it is. It's probably not in your short-term focus at this point.
Yeah, and that's correct. It's definitely on the long-range plan, our 2040 plan, but nothing that's in the current 5-year program, though the bike-friendly shoulders is something I can look into and see, as that road gets resurfaced, or if it hasn't been already, the next time it gets resurfaced, that'd be something that we would look to implement for certain, so.
And a question from Al, what's the timetable for building the path along Deerfield Road?
So if that's the piece that's we're kind of studying right now, a Deerfield Road project from Illinois Route 21 to Saunders Road, if that's the gap that Al's referring to, that one is in phase 2 design now. So that's where we're actually putting the engineering plans together and going to start the land acquisition process. So we do have 40 or so parcels we need to acquire. But the good news is, in terms of funding, that's a $32 million road project, which includes bike path along that whole stretch. And I think we have almost the full 80% maximum federal funding for that project. So the funding is in pretty good shape. It's just kind of getting through the land acquisition process, getting our final state and federal approvals and things like that. So all that said, we're probably in the 2023 to 2024 range for construction. So in our world, I know people obviously would like to see things done sooner, but when you're going through larger projects like that can take 8 to 10 years from start to finish. We start getting within those last couple of years and we're putting the plans together. That's it'll come here. It'll be here sooner than you know it, but it does take a little bit of time to get those larger projects delivered.
So another question from Matt. So as an out-of-the-box idea, what opportunities exist for the Lake County DOT to partner with local school districts for students bicycling to K-12 schools?
Yeah, that's something we haven't talked about before. I know there's there's some groups that have been working to do kind of bike share programs, and not necessarily, specifically with the schools and stuff, but I know like in the Grays Lake area, they're looking at doing kind of bike sharing options and things like that. So yeah, that's something that hasn't come up before. And I'd like to kind of know maybe a little bit more about, that idea would be something. Let me actually flip. What's a good point here while we're kind of talking is, for connecting to us with questions, ideas like that. Even we don't have it up here right now, but if you send me an email here, if this presentation will be out there, but if you send me an email, or I can maybe send to like Maggie or Heather, we have a general inbox at the DOT. I think it's dot.lakecountyil.gov, and I should have it committed to memory. I apologize for that. But for inquiries like that, whether it's non-motorized, roadway, anything like that, definitely something you can send to us. And we definitely consider all that kind of stuff, and we look at it when we're building our 5-year program, or if it's different programs like that, whether it's us that can kind of lead that initiative, or maybe it's working with some of those local school districts or municipalities or something like that. So definitely I'll get you guys that general inbox.
Great. Well, thank you. I think we can wrap up. Thank you for taking the time to share what's happening in Lake County, and also great that 6% of DOT funds are set aside for walking and biking. That is a really commendable amount compared to other counties. And yeah, we're looking forward to seeing more connections for transportation and recreation in the future. And yeah, if you do have questions for Lake County, looks like there's lots of paths to get in touch with you guys and share feedback. So, all right, well, thank you again, and thank you all for being here, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you for having us.